Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, or awfully close. Welcome to the wastewater informational meeting for Little Pond area landowners. This is the second version we've been able to host. My name is Julian Suso. I'm Falmouth Town Manager. It's a pleasure to have you all with us, so welcome. Let me take a moment and introduce the folks that are sitting at the front table with me and will be part of this presentation and event as it unfolds. First on my far right is Ray Jack, Director of Public Works for the town of Falmouth. Jeff Gregg, who's a consulting engineer with GHD. Jerry Patamus, our wastewater superintendent. Pat Flynn, who is chair of the Board of Selectmen. Tricia Favuli, who is the Director of Assessing. Virginia Villela and Eric Turkington, who head up our Water Quality Management Committee. We appreciate the great leadership that they have shown. And Sia Karplis, our staff consultant from ScienceWares. They will be teaming up, all of us here, to provide information, answer questions, and in general to host you this evening. A couple of things that I want to double check. Hopefully all of you had a chance to pick up a copy of the agenda on the back table. There are also several handouts. Included among them is a front and back handout on information for homeowners. Let me get the first. Financial help for homeowners, pardon me. Again, all dated April 21st. On the back side is from the Falmouth Assessing Department with Tricia's help on betterment deferrals. We'll be touching on those items as the evening unfolds, and also some information on a map with the boundaries of the Little Pond area wastewater target area, I guess for the lack of a better name, and also some information, I think, on eco toilets and related matters in the back. And again, these are all items that will be touched on at different times. As you'll note from the agenda, in addition to my comments here for welcoming remarks, we will have a PowerPoint, a progress report on the Little Pond sewer service area, which we do not have copies for you here this evening, but will be posted on the website beginning tomorrow for anyone that wants to view that in addition to what we're going to show here this evening. We appreciate FCTV's coverage of the meeting tonight, by the way. We appreciate their expertise in that coverage so anyone can watch this event at their leisure. Then we'll also take general questions from all of you that have questions, landowners and residents. And as you've noted, we do have scheduled a breakout session and maps of our sewer service area so that we can answer individuals' questions as our formal presentations conclude and we go to breakout sessions. Also at the bottom of your agenda, I want to stress one item in terms of the format for this evening. This meeting is organized strictly as an informational and question and answer session for the benefit of individual Little Pond landowners. It is not a forum for debate, and we appreciate everyone respecting that in the interest of time and courtesy to everybody who's gathered here this evening. We're here to answer your questions as landowners and residents of that area. A couple other questions just for my own information. I'm wondering how many of you may have had a chance to attend our April forum on this topic at T-Ticket School. A few of you have, several have. Okay, very good. And just out of curiosity, how many of you here tonight are year-round landowners, year-round homeowners in Falmouth? Great, welcome. And those of you who are back, welcome back. We also know that we have some folks who are with us seasonally, and we welcome you as well, and we want to make every effort to answer all of your questions and respect your time here this evening. So without further ado, I will pass the microphone to my colleagues who are going to present a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll get started on the balance of the evening. Again, thank you for being with us.
All right, can everybody hear me? Good, terrific. Fine. I know a lot of you, but for those who don't know me, my name's Eric Turkington. I was a selectman here a long time ago and represented Precinct 2, among other precincts, in the legislature for 20 years. And it has been my privilege for the last 4 years to be immersed in the wastewater issue here in the town. I'm doing it not because I'm so interested in wastewater, but because I'm interested in the estuaries in the town of Falmouth. We have more estuaries in this town than any other town in Massachusetts. And according to all the scientific studies that have been done by UMass Dartmouth, every one of them is impaired and some of them are dying. So the committee's work is not about sewering per se. Sewering is one answer to the degradation of the estuaries, and particularly for Little Pond. Little Pond is the most degraded of all the estuaries in this town, and you who live near it know that better than any of us. As some of the older folks here will know, the idea of sewering in this Heights Mara Vista area is not a new idea. It was actually part of the plan that the town put together in the early 80s. And back then, they weren't thinking about nitrogen. They were thinking, because of the small lots and the dense development and the high population, that was the next area to be sewered in this town. It never happened, which is too bad. It would have cost $3.5 million back then, but that's the way it went. Anyway, let me just fast forward now from the 80s till the last couple of years. The town put together this committee. The town put together a plan to address the estuaries, and the Board of Selectmen unanimously approved a plan that went to the state. That plan included this sewering project in Little Pond. The state DEP and EOE approved that plan last year. We went to town meeting in April and to the voters in May, and persuaded them that these projects, particularly this one, were important to the town's health of the estuaries. They voted almost $50 million, the voters and the town meeting, to proceed with this project, as well as the Boynes Pond inlet widening and some other smaller projects. The Little Pond Sewer Service Area is your neighborhood. You know where it is, and you can see on the map just how densely developed it is. There are very few empty lots left, as you well know, in that area. Basically, this is the lower Little Pond watershed. Everything, every building, every septic system, every cesspool within that red line contributes what it contributes to the groundwater, and it goes into Little Pond. There's 1,279 single-family parcels in that area. 2/3 of them, interestingly, are second homes and rentals. There's 201 commercial properties, and there are very few vacant lots. And for the owners of any vacant lot, your question is going to be, am I going to be assessed a betterment if the sewer goes by my house, or am I not? And the answer to that isn't as easy as you think, as Jerry will tell you. The assessor's records may say one thing, but you want to make sure, if you have a buildable lot or not a buildable lot, you're going to have to do a little homework to ascertain that. We did not just jump into this and say, let's sewer here. We looked at every other option and weighed the possibilities. Now, the requirement that we're all aiming at here, and this is one that the federal EPA and the state DEP are both holding the town to, is that 100% of the controllable nitrogen has to be removed from this pond. That sewering will remove 88% of it. So the remaining 12%, we have a number of options that we're going to work on to reach the remaining 12%. Shellfish is one of them, and because you've all been living next to Little Pond, you probably are all well aware of the shellfish experiment we've been operating. This year there are 2 million little oysters going into Little Pond. They love Little Pond. They grow very nicely in Little Pond, and we're going to have some real numbers at the end of 3 years that show how useful oysters are in removing nitrogen. Eco toilets is another thing I know you've all heard about. That basically involves removing all the toilets in your house from the kind you have now and installing a kind that doesn't end up putting nitrogen into the ground from the toilet. It has consumer issues, shall we say. In your particular area, the town is offering the best deal on the planet, which is if you want to put the Eco toilet in, you can avoid paying a betterment. So basically, it's an $18,000 incentive for anybody who wants to do that. A few people have inquired, and there may be some who actually do want to do it, but there are issues with Eco toilets that make it not universally popular. But it's on the table. Fertilizer control is another one. When you think about it, fertilizer is basically putting pure nitrogen on the ground and watching it wash into the water. This is not a good practice if you're trying to get nitrogen out of the water. So this town has passed the strongest bylaw in the state of Massachusetts against fertilizing. You cannot fertilize within 100 feet of a water body in this town under that bylaw. And there are guidelines as to what fertilizing you can do beyond the 100 feet. So it's very strict. We're hoping, we sent a letter out recently to everybody who's within 100 feet of the saltwater estuaries saying, this is the bylaw, pay attention to it, and it's something you should want to do anyway. But that's another way we're going at reducing that last 12%. Final one here is inlet widening. We originally talked about trying to do an inlet widening demonstration project at Little Pond, and we heard loud and clear from several very strongly opinionated neighbors that if we proposed such a thing, they would sue us. So we said, all right, let's go to a place where they won't sue us, because we want a demonstration project. We don't want a lawsuit. So Boynes Pond is where the first inlet opening demonstration project is going to take place. The hope is that it can reduce nitrogen more cheaply than sewering. We expect that will be true in Boynes Pond. Whether it will be useful in Little Pond, I mean, every pond is different, but whether it will be useful in the future in Little Pond to get that 12% down, we don't know yet. We'll know more after we've gone through the Boynes Pond experiment. But it's on the table as yet another possible way of getting that 12%. I will now turn this over to my colleague and Vice Chairman, Virginia Valiela, who will take it.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Virginia Valiela. I'm the Vice Chair of the Water Quality Management Committee. I was a Commissioner of Public Works in the early 1980s when the first the sewer was put into Main Street and the plant was built on Blacksmith Shop Road. And so I remember the discussion about needing to deal with the very small lots, the high amount of cesspool failure in the Falmouth Heights, Mara Vista area. As Eric said, that did not happen, and subsequently the entire state has begun to look at just the nitrogen loading to all its coastal ponds. Little Pond is the worst, most polluted pond, and the watershed for Little Pond is practically at build out. There are just a handful of vacant lots. So it made sense to focus on that area as being a cost-effective way of dealing with the nitrogen and cleaning up the pond. There are a lot of financial aspects to putting in a sewer for the town and clearly for the residents. And so what the Water Quality Committee has tried to do is assemble information. It's an ongoing effort to help the homeowners and property owners deal with this new situation. So we are starting very basically. Many people don't even know what a betterment is. And so we have up here the definition of a betterment. It applies to a municipal project, whether it's a street or a water main or a sewer. And it basically provides an improvement, a bettering to your property. And that's hence where the word betterment comes from. The town has to upfront the costs and construct the project, and that requires a town meeting vote and then a ballot vote. And both of those things were done this year. The design for it was, again, a town meeting vote and a ballot vote, and that was a year ago. And all of those have clearly passed town meeting by a 2/3 vote and by a solid majority of the citizens on the ballot. After the project is done and the final costs are known, that is when the actual betterment that you will be charged will become known. But the town is required to have a betterment hearing before the project begins and give you the estimated cost. And if our estimated cost turns out to be lower than your actual betterment in 2017 or 18 timeframe, will be lower. If it turns out the actual cost was higher than what we estimated, the town has to pay for that. The residents do not pay for that. Town meeting further discussed whether the resident should assume all of the costs for the collection system within your area, and decided that the town would pay 30% of those costs. So the dollar amounts that we are using are actually 70% of the estimated cost per residential property within the sewer service area. And lastly, we put at the bottom, in legal terms, a betterment assessment is a lien on the property. And so anybody that were going to the registry would find this lien. It can be paid all at once, or it can be paid over a period of time voted by the selectmen. And I'm going to come back to that topic. That's the special legislation that we have had passed to help homeowners. If the property is sold, or if it is an estate that is settled, then all of the betterment assessment is paid at that point in time, regardless of whatever the payback period is that the selectmen have voted. So that's the definition of a betterment. Next, the committee generated what we would call the best case and the possible worst case, most expensive case, for what the betterment cost to the property owners would be. We have, because of the special legislation, you might say two flex points, two opportunities to make the cost easier for the homeowner, or to follow the current state law. Current state law has a 20-year payback period, and current state law has a 2% interest. Our special legislation would allow us to charge 0%, would allow us to spread the payments over 30 years and to charge a 0% interest if the town receives a 0% interest. So when you do the calculations for a residential unit, the cost is $25,600. Town pays 30%, leaving $17,900 per property. And then in these 4 lines, we've done the math. If you do it at 20% with a 0%, it would be $897 per year. If we spread it over 30 years, which is what this committee has tried to achieve, and that's what we have basically put forward to town meeting, to the selectmen, to the public. 30-year payback period at 0% interest would be roughly $600 a year. If we follow the state law, there would be a 2% interest, and at 20 years, you have $1,091 per year, and if it's spread over 30 years, it would be $804 per year. So those are our working numbers at this point. Next slide. I'm sorry, let me, just because there's some heads in the way, the very last line at the bottom says estimated date of first payment 2017 to 2018. And that's just to reiterate again that the actual assessment cannot be sent to you until the construction is complete and the total cost is known. And that, we believe, is in the 2017 to 18 timeframe. So we have time to discuss this and time to plan. Okay, next slide. This is a quick step through of what is going to happen in the next months and then with construction the next years. The town has a very serious deadline, and that's October 15th. We have to get our application with our design at the 99% stage, 95% stage, to the state with all the other documentation that is necessary to qualify for a state revolving loan. The loan is available at 2%, but if we have met all of their other criteria, we are eligible for a 0% loan, and that is what we have tried to achieve. This winter, and it depends partly, the reason it says winter 2014-15, depending on the response back from the state and their decision on the interest for the loan, the selectmen will vote the betterment interest rate and the payback period. So that's the 0 or 2% range, and that's the 20 years or 30 years. Those will be key votes, and they are decided by the Board of Selectmen, enabled by the special legislation that is passed. There will be a formal betterment hearing that will be run by the Department of Public Works, and every property owner will receive a certified letter with a dollar amount attached to it. And then that will be the beginning of the process for construction. The betterment hearing has to be held before we actually start construction. We expect construction to start in the spring, could be as early as April, and we expect that it will be done by 2017, and then we will determine the final costs, and the selectmen will then send out the betterment invoices. On the next slide, we've assembled the list of the various tools that could be used that are available to homeowners to help them with these costs. I've alluded to some, but I'm going to go through all of them. Some of these tools are also available to residents that don't have to live in the sewer service area because they're mass general laws. They're ways to help homeowners handle their betterments and their taxes. So speaking first about the special legislation, realizing the impact of this sewer project, town meeting passed, and then the legislature and the Attorney General approved special legislation for the town of Falmouth that allows, it's permissive, allows the selectmen to spread the payback period over 30 years at a 0% in equal amounts. The current legislation says you pay a large amount and then it declines over time because the principal has declined over time. But if you can plan for a standard amount each month or each quarter, it's easier on your budget. So this legislation allows for equal payments throughout the payback period, and it allows it to be done in quarterly payments as you do your taxes now. To implement that special legislation, as I said, will require a vote of the Board of Selectmen. The second item is full deferral of betterment payments. Under Massachusetts general laws, homeowners who are 65 years or older, they live in their own domicile, they have an income no more than $40,000 annual income, can defer their betterment payments. And on the back side of this handout, Trish Favuli, the head of the assessing department, has written the full list of requirements that are needed to see if you are eligible for this program. What we are trying to do tonight is to show you where there are ways that might fit your particular situation, and then we've tried to direct you to the person or the agency that has the full amount of information. And that way you can discuss your particular situation with a knowledgeable person. So full deferral of betterment payments, you would see Trish Favuli, and she has put her own personal telephone number at Town Hall on that sheet that you have with you. The next is the property tax exemption, and that's eligible to people who are over 70 and again have their certain income limits and other criteria. It's any, because this is being taped, anyone in the town of Falmouth who is over 70 and fits the criteria would be eligible to apply for this. And again, you would talk to the Director of Assessing. The fourth one is the Senior Circuit Breaker Tax Credit. This is a statewide Massachusetts program through the Department of Revenue. As it says on your fact sheet, this particular credit includes other costs, includes either rent or your property tax. It includes half of your water and sewer charges. So again, it's something that should be discussed with your tax advisor. If you have a limited income, this may be a way for you to reduce your costs. The fifth one is state income tax credit, and this has to do specifically with the connections to the municipal sewer, the costs. And there is a particular form called Schedule SC, septic credit. And the best way to investigate that is to talk to your tax advisor. It is part of your annual filing with Department of Revenue. The sixth opportunity for financial help was the Community Septic Management Loan Program. This is run by Barnstable County. It's a loan. It's spread over 20 years, and it helps you with the costs of connection. So whatever your costs may be, we've originally said that we expect the hookup cost to be somewhere in the $2,500 to $4,000 range. You can get a loan for whatever that cost or a portion of that cost through Barnstable County, spread over 20 years at 5%. Kendall Ayers is the person who administers that program, and that's his email address, and he welcomes contact from you. And then lastly is, but not least, is the exemption that Eric referred to a little while ago. If you install an eco toilet and remove all of the existing conventional toilets from your property, then the entire betterment, you are exempted from the entire betterment, and you become part of the eco toilet program. At the bottom of this fact sheet, we put again the important dates, the betterment hearing, which will be this winter, and the fact that the actual betterment, the time that you actually receive a bill that you have to pay, will be in the 2017 to 18 timeframe. And it cannot exceed the amount that the selectmen estimate it will cost at the betterment hearing. All right. My section of the presentation was in response to what I heard back from various public meetings and civic association meetings that have been held during the past couple of weeks. Our last speaker tonight is Jeff Gregg from GHD Engineers, who are doing the design for the sewer collection system and the pumping stations, and also the upgrade at the sewer plant. And since there were questions from the audience also about the low pressure system, which a portion of the properties within the sewer service area are going to be have to install, we asked Jeff to come and talk about low pressure systems. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you, Virginia. Good evening. My name is Jeff Gregg. I'm a project manager with GHD, and I've been working with the town of Falmouth on the Little Pond project for a while now. We started working with the Water Quality Committee on some of the evaluations. And so to give you a little of the background, we had looked at various different collection system technologies when we were considering this area, when we were looking at it initially as part of the facilities plan and as part of the preliminary design. We had started with looking at some kind of hybrid system, which would be, or a combined system, which would be gravity and low pressure based on viability of potential lift station sites, trying to work with depths of sewers and consideration of dewatering and things of that nature. And then we also evaluated all low pressure and some variations on that, and also vacuum sewer type systems. So we looked at a bunch of those different technologies, and we ended up with the gravity and low pressure system that you see on the various posters around and you've been hearing about. The layout has changed as we went through that process based on as we were looking at the various different sites. And then the design that we're moving forward with now consists of the focus on the design in the roadway. So the work that we're doing is for the mainline pipes for both the gravity and the low pressure and the force mains, the two lift stations, the two new lift stations, and then the laterals that would go up to the property line that would then be the connection point for each of the homeowners and property owners in the area. And then this type of system, the combined gravity low pressure type system, is fairly common. It's used throughout the United States, and it's a function of usually topography and soil conditions and what you're dealing with in those various areas. And so those things and costs all come into play, and that's how we got to where we are right now. And so I believe with that, I think we're going to open it up to questions, because I'm sure there are people that have some. So.
Thank you, everyone. Now, as noted, we're happy to take questions of general interest, follow-up, et cetera, from anyone that may have them here. I'll just note, if you have a question specific only to your particular property, we may ask you to hold on, and we'll meet with you individually as one of the breakouts. Again, we want to try and focus on general interest questions first, out of respect for everyone that's gathered here. So who would have questions? We don't really have a microphone to take you, but maybe with Sia's help. Okay, we'll slide one down. Why don't you just take whoever's comes up first, Sia, if you would.
Paul Lombardozzi from Oak Street in East Falmouth. I have, I guess it's kind of a two-part question. The first part is, what happens to the septic systems we already have? Those of us have them either in the back or the front of our properties, and how is that going to be addressed?
Great question, Paul. You want us to take that one first, and then you can ask number two?
The Board of Health regulations require that the system is abandoned. By abandoned, it usually means filling it in with flowable sand, and the reason for that is they don't want empty containers to collapse. That was in our original estimate of a connection cost. You cannot use it for storing stormwater or anything else, Board of Health, and that is a Board of Health regulation.
Thank you. And the second question I have is, on the road that goes down on Great Bay area, it's under a lot of controversy right now. I'm just curious to know, maybe the young man from the engineering department, how will that road be compromised with all the digging and the laying of the pipe that goes down that way? We have certain areas that are washing out already, and I'm wondering if that will interfere with the construction.
And you're referring to the road that runs along
Great Bay Road, along Great Bay,
along the
yes.
water. We're actually not, all the sewer collection system is proposed to run basically north-south down Mara Vista and Mara Vista Avenue and Extension, and then it will branch off onto each of the side streets. But the intent is to basically stop before we get to the ends of those. I think there's possibly one or two situations where there's a property that has access through there, and there may be a need for us to work the lateral over in that direction, but the majority of that work is all away from those edges. We're actually trying to avoid and stay away from resource areas like that.
Hi.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please.
Hi, Richard Stone. I'm over on Hickory Lane. I still haven't had explained in a way that I can understand low pressure, gravity, and how each of those things will affect a homeowner and what has to go into place. For instance, I've asked several times a question about these so-called grinders, and even my plumber is kind of uncertain about what to answer in that question. So if you could, as you said you were, going to explain low pressure and gravity and how that affects an individual property, I think that would be useful.
Okay. No, the reason I was going to wait for the questions to kind of figure out what people actually wanted to hear. I know we had done some workshops earlier as part of the water quality project as well. Essentially, the primary difference for those people that aren't familiar with a gravity system versus a low pressure system is a gravity system works as it says. It flows by gravity. So like you have in your house right now, you have a septic system, so the wastewater that you collect in your house flows out through a pipe and typically will flow by gravity to your septic system. You may have a special case where you actually have to pump to your septic system depending on your lot, but I think the majority of people in this area, it would flow to your septic tank or your cesspool. And then this is a gravity system is essentially an extension of that process. So instead of stopping at your septic tank and then flowing by gravity to your leaching field or your cesspool, that gravity line is going to extend down and then connect to a point at the road, at the edge of the road right away, so at your property line. In which case it will be then collected by the gravity sewer system, which is essentially what you have in your existing system down at Woods Hole and Main Street. And it's a system, it's a set of manholes and pipe that is sloped so that water flows downhill and then is collected at a lift station. That's the general concept of a gravity system. Because it flows by gravity, you have to, and you have requirements on minimum slopes and things like that so that water actually flows downhill. You do, as you get further and further away, you get deeper and deeper if ground level doesn't change. So if you had a flat piece of land, your pipe would go like that, and your land would stay there, and your pipe would eventually go down to your low point, and everything would collect at a low point. If grade drops off, then it pretty much would follow topography. And I apologize that it's an awful sketch. Low pressure, what that system means is that you would essentially have a pumping system, a small pump at your house. They're like similar in size to a sump pump, but they're designed to move wastewater. So they're designed to move solids. And what they do is you'd have that, so you would flow by gravity out of your house to that location, and then from there it would pump by a low pressure lateral, so basically a pipe that's roughly about 1.25 inches in diameter, and that would go to the street and connect to a main line in the street. The advantage of a low pressure system is that it only needs to be about 4 feet in the ground, and it can just kind of go along and follow topography. And if there are high points or low points, you have to make accommodations for that in the design. But then that eventually could either pump directly to wherever you wanted to pump to, whether it's a gravity system or directly to a lift station or directly to a treatment plant. In the case in here, all that is going to be pumping into the gravity system that we're designing. So the lower tier of Mara Vista is essentially all those pumps will be pumping up to a gravity line that will be up in Mara Vista Avenue that'll extend south of Randolph and north of Randolph. Those will kind of come to a point, and then they're going to head over on Randolph to Spring Bars to a lift station in that location. And so that pipe diameter will vary depending on pressure and how many houses you have connected and things like that. So that's the general gist of the difference between a low pressure system and a gravity system. Did I hit on enough of the points for?
Can we get you a microphone again, sir? Just one moment.
I know from my plumber that what comes out of the house now is a 4-inch pipe, and so when you're talking 1 inch to 1.5 inches, that seems like quite a reduction, and I'm not quite sure how that works, but I'm going to trust you. You don't have to explain it tonight. I've got the difference, for my purposes, in those two systems, and thank you.
Well, I will say that, so your 4-inch pipe will go into basically what's called for lack of a better term, a wet well, which is where your pump is going to be, your pump would be housed. And so it collects there, and then your pump pumps it out, and because you're able to pump it by pressure, you can go to a smaller diameter pipe. So that's why it transitions from a 4 to a 1 1/4.
Go ahead, sir, in the back.
Yeah, Alan Miller from Great Bay Street. I apologize if you've covered this in previous public forums, but I'm new to these forums.
It's quite all right, go ahead.
I'm all in favor of protecting the estuaries and improving them, but my question has to do with the cost split from the point of view of the town and the residents of the Mara Vista Avenue area. What's the rationale for the 70-30 split?
I'm not sure who wants to take that, right?
70-30 is actually a generally accepted principle for many, many betterments, whether it be water betterments, sewer betterments, or what have you. The fundamental reason is that it's assumed that it wouldn't be considered fair to put 100% of any cost like that on an individual homeowner, but conversely, that it's supposed to be to a limited benefiting area. So in this case, it's a very small part of town, but the overall project is not just going to be funded through, well, it's going to be funded through it, but if it were 100%, or let me say 50%, whereby the remainder of the town was picking it up, the remainder of the town is also going to have other costs that they have to incur too. So the fundamental underlying principle is the area that's receiving the benefit should pay the lion's share of the cost. Hence, that's more than 50% and less than 100%. But the generally accepted principle has been a 70-30 split.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused because I don't understand how it benefits me more than somebody in Woods Hole or in North Falmouth. I don't see my property value going up because of this.
You may not actually see it as a value, but there is no question that it is a benefit. And under the law, Ms. Valiella had put that up there before, that benefit to a property can be an indirect or a direct benefit. An indirect benefit would be if that pond improves, little pond improves, that is an indirect benefit. It's a strict environmental benefit for that limited community that's being served. If you put a water main into a geographic area, the indirect benefit is that there would be fire protection provided to the area. You don't see it, you don't pay for it, but it's an indirect benefit that you do receive. So when you do sewer in area, whether it's an environmental improvement, a road improvement, or a property improvement, there is a benefit, and it may not always translate into a direct value that you can attribute to your house. But a good example would be you may be able to add a garage, you may be able to add additional bedrooms on a house. So there are things that you can maybe do now that you wouldn't have been able to do before, and those are direct property benefits.
Eric, why don't you make comment too?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
If I could just elaborate on that a little bit. There are a lot of people in this room, and a lot of people not in this room, who live in the Mara Vista Heights area, who have septic systems that are not good. Some of them, a lot of them are cesspools. A lot of people have systems that are in trouble, and being in trouble in an area like that with a small lot means it's very hard to fix it. You can't put in leaching fields without variances. It gets very ill. At best, a new leaching field would cost you $10,000, and sooner or later everyone's going to need one. But in this area in particular, I think you all know, a lot of people have been nursing their septic systems along for quite a while because of the size of the lots and because of the soil being saturated in many cases. So the the benefit to the homeowner is quite clear. You won't be paying for any more septic pump outs out of your septic or cesspool. you won't be paying for replacing your leaching field ever. And here's a key one. Right now, quite a few of you, if you ever wanted to add a bedroom or a garage or anything, you would find that when you went to the Board of Health, you couldn't do it. When this sewer system is in there, you can do it. The town specifically passed a bylaw that says you can go up to 4 bedrooms, which many of you cannot now and would not be able to in the absence of a sewer. So there is a definite benefit to anyone who has a 2-bedroom house and wants a 3-bedroom house, or a 3-bedroom house and wants a 4-bedroom house. You can't do it now. You will be able to when you have a sewer. That's a direct benefit to you.
One other thing I might add too is that the town's actual share is really higher, but it's an invisible share, meaning that there's going to be a $4.5 million plant upgrade as a consequence of this, as well as additional discharge capacity in order to accommodate the area, and the town's paying those costs at 100%.
Next question?
Yes. Neil Karras, Mara Vista Ave. Back to the low-pressure system. And looking at the map, you have an 8-inch main till it gets to Reynolds Street, and then it decreases all the way down. When that decreases, is that still a gravity system in the main road, or that has to be pumped up to Reynolds Street?
Yes, just to clarify that the figure that is probably out there now is part of preliminary design, and the pipe sizes are going to change slightly, so they may be a little different than what is there. But the way that flow works is if you start at the southern point of Mara Vista, everything is flowing north up until you hit Reynolds. So what it's going to be is it's pressure up until, oh man, I can't remember the name of the road. Let's say.
Do you want?
I guess I'd have to look.
Yes, go over to the map.
Take the mic. I apologize. I don't have all of them committed to memory. So the low pressure starts down here, and it works its way up. Sorry, I said Reynolds, but it's actually Randolph. I think the transition is somewhere around Reynolds Street, and it transitions from low pressure to gravity, and then from gravity it's still flowing downhill to Randolph, and then it flows over towards the lift station that's being proposed on spring bars. Flow from Mara Vista and Mara Vista Extension are coming southward to Randolph Street and over. So does that clarify your question? So it's under pressure up to the point.
Pressure from each individual grinder pump?
So each individual grinder pump pumps into the system, and the system is a enclosed system, so it pressurizes those pipes, and then that flow moves up towards the discharge point at the free end, which is basically a manhole at the end of the gravity system, partway down Mara Vista. So this will pump under pressure, discharge at that manhole, and then from there it's flowing by gravity through the gravity system that's proposed and over to Spring Bars Road. Does that answer your question on the transition
So
there?
it is the individual pumps that are causing that pressure in
Yes,
that
so
main.
so they all work, and they will pump, and they will either pump in conjunction with each other, or depending on how many pumps actually kick on at any one time, will dictate what the actual pressure is, and that's why the pipe gets low. As you work your way up the road, because you have the potential for more pumps being on at any one time, that pipe size gets larger due to velocities and head loss conditions and things like that. So
Now, in winter months when there's not as many people, will that pressure decrease? Will everything still function?
yep, the system would be designed so that if you're the only person from here down and you live over in that corner, your pump should be able to pump and continue to pump your wastewater, and it'll move its way. It just will move a little slower than it would normally would under summer when it's up there already. Did that clarify that part
That
too?
did, yes.
Thank you.
He might stay here.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Alan Jaffe, 64 Randolph Street. I'm in the gravity feed area, and what I'd kind of like to know is how high does the exit from my house have to be to mate up with the gravity feed area, or how will I determine that?
That's an excellent question.
Second question too, by the way.
So in the gravity system, what we try to do is we design our system to start at a fairly shallow depth and then work our way down so we don't have our sewer so deep in the ground. But that elevation is dictated by the homeowners around that area, and that's where you'll see, if you look at some of the maps, and these don't have it, but there are some maps floating around because people are obviously making reference to them, where you'll see the gravity will extend and then all of a sudden there's a little stub of low pressure. And what that means is we went as far as we thought we could go based on topography, and then because the ground starts sloping off, gravity only works in one direction. So those people on the extremities would be pumping in on that. What we try to do is try to work on balancing the depth of the system with the depth in the main. Now, to get to your question with regards to your house, the first thing you would do is you would contact your plumber, and they should be able to, or you could go down if you have a basement and you could measure down. Now, if you have a slab on grade, then that's where it gets a little more difficult. What we tried to do is go and look at Board of Health records to see what information we could find on the existing septic systems, and what we found is that there isn't a whole lot of information on septic systems from 1962 and so on. So what is a typical rule of thumb if you had a slab on grade is that pipe is probably going to be exiting around 2 feet out from below your slab. And then we run a certain percentage of grade from your house to the road to see, can we get there by gravity? I wish I had a whiteboard because it'd be a little easier to explain. So when you go, as construction gets ready to start, prior to construction, there's going to be a workshop to inform all the homeowners, or as many as we can, about what you need to do as a homeowner to prepare for the oncoming construction. During construction, the contractor is also required required to provide you a notice that basically says, hey, we're going to be putting, this type of sewer on your road. Please contact your plumber, find out where your elevation, find out where your existing septic tank or cesspool is, where that pipe is, how far down it is, and at what depth you'd like to be at the street. Because the situation is, the town requirements, I believe, is about keeping a 2% slope on a 4-inch pipe, which is about, so it's 2 feet in every 100 feet. So if you're 100 feet away from the road and you know your pipe comes out 2 feet below grade, then you know that your pipe at the road needs to be at least 4 feet below that same elevation. And then our sewer wants to be below that so that we can make sure that we make the connection. There is a level of effort that has to be done by the homeowner in order to determine where your system is. And some of that can be looking at records. In a lot of situations, homeowners have said, here's my septic plan, but can you tell me what we need to do? We've done that. We've had our RPRs, our resident project representatives, work with homeowners, because the other thing that's important is, where do you want it? The homeowner may say, well, I want it right here because that's where my plumber says it comes straight out from my house. It'll come right down the hill, and this is where I want it. And we would adjust the lateral as long as it would work by gravity into the system. And then if it's not, then we try to work with the homeowner in that situation. That's kind of the process. I see a quizzical look, like
Sounds like this is determined.
For each homeowner?
For each homeowner.
No, it isn't determined for each homeowner. What we've done is we've gone through and looked at grade and looked at the approach, and then gone from there to see whether or not we think that we can get it by gravity. Because in most cases, the sewer is deep enough that to be 6 feet below grade is easily attainable by properties along, because Mara Vista is fairly flat.
Is there a specification right now for the laterals that go out on the streets, how deep they're going to be?
Yes, we're going to establish a range. We're still working on that.
Still working on it.
Yep, so we're going to establish a range and what the maximum slope is that it'll be in the street. And then the town's requirement is basically a 2% slope from it coming out of your house to the point of connection for a gravity system.
When will that specification be available?
When will it?
When will be the definition of how deep the sewers will be in the individual streets? When will that be?
When we have the package ready in October for the
October.
for the proposal, and then therefore people can come and look at it, and if you say it looks like I need more depth or I want it to be shallower, we can certainly work. We've been doing that already with certain things, but like I said, we tried to pull as many of the septic records as we can to make that determination. There's just not a whole lot of existing septic records.
The other question that I'm interested in is, how is the Little Pond area determined? I mean, I'm on the side and the slope from my house goes down to Great Pond. How did I get in the Little Pond area?
I'll let
You are correct. The Massachusetts Estuaries Project has a watershed defined for every estuary in the town of Falmouth. And the line for Little Pond is between Mara Vista Avenue and Great Bay, but it doesn't go all the way to Great Bay. So there are a few houses on the eastern side of the Mara Vista Peninsula that actually discharge to Great Bay. However, if we are putting in a $40 million sewer, it does not make sense to take care of all of the houses except the last 2 or 3 on the street because they discharge to Great Bay, when in fact Great Bay has a pollution problem just like Little Pond. It's just not as bad. And so in time, the town has to come up with a plan for how to clean up Great Bay as well. So this sewer system, to some degree, will benefit Great Bay. It completely encompasses Little Pond watershed, and it has a thin margin on the eastern side that will actually benefit Great Bay.
Just to add to that, the USGS is the agency that determined the perimeter of the catchment area, as it were, for Little Pond. It's been scientifically determined, and it's been the standard that UMass Dartmouth has been using in all of their studies of estuaries, is the USGS definitions, regional model. Okay, sir, go ahead.
Martin LaCarbonara of Priscilla Street. I got a couple of questions. One of them in the cost factor of $25,600 something is the estimated cost, and our cost of that is determined not to go beyond $17,900, if I'm reading this right. Does that include the portion from the street to my house to my cellar?
No. What you have just described is just the betterment part. The betterment is paying for the collection system. It's paying for the pipes in the streets and the lift stations. And the residents are paying a portion of that. The cost that is not in the betterment cost is your specific cost for your specific property from the property line to your plumbing in your house. And we've estimated a range of $2,500 to $4,000 for that. That is just a range, and it depends partly on how back your house sits and whether you have other plumbing issues.
Can that be piggybacked with that 0 or 2% loan?
The 0 or 2% loan will help to reduce the cost of the betterment. The hookup costs were what I referenced as the Barnstable County, the Community Septic Management Plan. That's the one that will help you manage those costs. That's number 6. Well, okay, yeah, you can explain that, sure.
And my other questions are, what if we don't get the 0%? What if it goes to 2%? Why don't they have an answer now for us?
The state always requires the towns to make their submittal first. So that's why we can't give you a definitive answer. But everything that has been said informally or quoted in the newspaper from the state indicates that we are on track for a 0% loan, provided we submit everything that we're required to submit by October 15th.
My other question is, you call this a betterment.
Yeah.
Is the assessment department going to come around and say, hey, your house is improved by $25,000, your assessment's going up?
I knew I was going to get here eventually. No, we will not come out and reassess your property because you have a betterment. There is no assessed value equated to hooking up to the sewer system.
And my other question is this. I'm selling my house, theoretically. I'm into a 25-year, whatever plan you got coming. In year 5, I'm going to sell my house. Do I have to pay that betterment off, or is that settled at the closing?
Typically, it's settled at the closing, and right now there are very few banks that will lend a buyer financing with a betterment in place because it is a lien on the property, so they require it to be paid at closing. Whether or not you pay it at closing or the buyer picks up that fee, finance-wise, somehow it gets paid, you work it into the price of your property. That's between you, your realtor, your lawyer, and the buyer.
So it sounds like you're stuck. I don't think any bank is going to give you a loan if you got a lien on the property.
There's very, very few banks right now that will lend on that.
So if I owe $20,000 on this thing, and it's down to 18 when I go to sell it, I got to come up with that money beforehand?
You would have to come, it would be paid at the closing. Okay, out of your proceeds, you sold your house for $400,000 and you owe $18,000. Then at the closing, the attorney would cut the check to the town of Falmouth for the $18,000 and it would be paid through the closing.
So the originator is going to go for that plan?
Well, it depends upon how your proceeds are working.
Hold on, one at a time.
The next person.
We'll give everybody a chance. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Chuck Black, Fenton Street. What happens to all the pavement in all the streets? Is the pavement going to be cut and patched? A road's going to be resurfaced? What's included in the budget for that? And after the sewer project gets installed, how long does a homeowner have to connect?
Good.
Yes, the roads will be restored. The plan is to overlay the roads that get cut up because some of these trenches are going to be fairly large and disruptive. With regard to time to connect, we plan to design the system such as construction proceeds and certain areas are finalized and tested that connections will be allowed to occur. So it's not as though an individual homeowner will be required to wait until the construction for the entire project is complete before they'll be able to connect. So as individual sections are identified that are already tested, then the homeowners will be notified that they'll be able to tie in.
And just to follow up to that, whoever does the work, it won't be the town, it'll be an outside contractor, I assume.
Yes.
Will you be filing with conservation? Will there be erosion control installed?
All of the above, yes.
Sweeping required?
Yes.
Recently in the Mara Vista area, the gas company's been doing work, no erosion control, no sweeping.
No, we'll have that in place.
How about the work that's going on now illegally without erosion control, not protecting Little Pond?
With respect to the gas company, the Concom's jurisdiction is 100 feet from the wetland. So it depends on whether or not that work is physically within that zone where they can exercise control or
On
not.
Fenton Street, both sides, they did work within 100 feet. I called the town. no action was taken.
Did you call the Conservation Commission?
I did,
Okay.
and they never came back and swept the roads. So, thank you.
Sir, is that still ongoing, or is that completed?
Still ongoing.
I would just ask if you might give me the address before you leave tonight, so we can check into that.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Donna LaRoche, Cypress Street. I am a brand-new Falmouthite. I've been coming to Falmouth since I was a young child. I saved for 10 years to buy my very first home ever. I've been a lifelong renter. I'm delighted to be here. 3 days before the anniversary of my first year living here, the sewer situation was passed. I think it's actually terrific. I'm very pleased about cleaning up the water. I have a lot of concerns about the cost. I read the paper every week, scouring it, trying to get information. What I'm finding over and over is the quote of $18,000 over 30 years at 0%. I think the gentleman there just had some questions about whether it would be 30 years at 0, 30 years at 2, 20 years at 0, 20 years at 2. Doing the math, I keep looking at numbers that are way more than 18,000. I don't hear mentioned often, except occasionally there's a sewer usage fee that has been quoted as $300 additional a year. When you do the math over 30, that makes it $27,000 for that 30 year at 0. It makes it $33,120 for 30 years at 2%. It makes it $36,000 over 20 years at 0%, and it makes it $41,000 plus over 20 years at 2%, plus the cost of the hookup. So number of questions, but I guess my first big question is, when are the homeowners going to know whether they need to sell their homes quickly or whether they can stay? And I'm not saying it in jest. I just bought my home. I'd like to stay, but it's very upsetting. Thank you.
Virginia, you want to try that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you to Falmouth, and I'm I'm sorry you're upset. We're trying to help this in working through what we know is a complicated project. As we indicated earlier, it's been under discussion since the 1980s, and the town meeting has discussed it many times, and many selectmen have been involved in various pieces, and in these last 4 years, it is finally happening. So for those of us who've been involved in it for so long, we recognize, you know, not everybody knew, but there is a very, very long history. I think some of the numbers that you just put out have, you've sort of confused one thing with another. So I'm just going to again try and separate the pieces. The betterment piece has to do with the collection system. The town has to front end the total cost, and then we recover a portion of it, which town meeting determined would be 70% of the collection system. The $17,900 number is our current estimate of what that 70% piece looks like. And then if you divide that by 30 years with no interest, you end up with about $600 per year as the cost, and you can pay it with quarterly, so it's actually $150 each quarterly payment of your tax. So that's how we've cut down that particular piece of the cost. You mentioned the sewer usage. That's your actual usage. You now pay a water bill. If you take your annual water bill and double it, that will give you roughly the cost that you, in your particular water use, would be paying for sewer usage. We looked at the water records for the people in the sewer surface area and took the average, and that's how we arrived at $300 a year. If you use less water, you won't be paying $300 a year. And that will come with your water bill, and which you pay twice a year. The hookup costs are clearly individual costs, property by property. We're dealing with a lot of fairly small lots, and the houses are reasonably close, and with a few exceptions, to the street. And so that's why we gave a range of $2,500 to $4,000. And that was based on interviewing the companies that did the hookups for New Silver Beach. New Silver Beach was the last, or was the most recent sewer project that the town has had. And so we asked them at current dollars, what do you think it would cost to hook up the houses in Mara Vista? And that's the information that we got. We'd be glad to talk to you some more individually, and perhaps we can reduce some of your concerns. So Sia, you should do the next person.
I just want to underscore, we're not going to abandon anybody out there.
No.
We're going to continue to stay in touch with you to work this through. We know there's an impact, and we recognize it. So hang in there with us as this unfolds.
I just wanted to ask about, I think you brought up the point of the betterment assessment when you go to sell your home. That's considered a lien now on your property. Could that betterment assessment actually be taken over by the new homeowner who you sold the house to?
The town allows it to be taken over by the homeowner. If a bank is involved for any lending, that's where
That's
it's
where the problem
stopped. So
is.
if you have a cash buyer, the buyer will assume it. But once a lender gets involved and sees that lien on the property, they're requiring it to be paid off.
That's the problem, okay. All right, thank you.
Harold Crocker, Palm Street. I have a question here to help input what's going on. On the cesspools, people have to realize they have cesspools in their property now. They'll have to be pumped. Is that correct? And it has to be the expense of the people that have the homes. That's
The cost, the $2,500 to $4,000 spread of cost in the hookup included pumping and closing out the septic system.
okay. Thank you. And I have one more question here. I know I try to. On these ejection pumps, I will have to have one, and I would like to have explained that the people will have to have put this in. There will be electricity to it, and when the power goes out, that means the pump does not work. Now, we're going to have some provisions. I know I have a generator that will help me, but we're going to have some provisions in the town to protect the owner of the home if it backs up into his system or whose system. And another thing too, we got told tonight about the sewers going up the avenue. Is there any type of booster plant up there that's run by electricity that will push that into the Falmouth Mall and then discharge it out from the Falmouth Mall, the discharging station, up to where it's going to go? Is there any electricity involved to anybody that knows? Because if the power goes out for a while, and you know and I know, I've been here for a long time, it stays a while. Thank you very much.
There are different systems that operate differently and have different capacities, but generally you're looking at a capacity of between 75 and 150 gallons on that system. So you've got better than a day's storage availability on it because we'll only pump as it's necessary. So during a power outage, most people would limit their use of water to begin with because during a power outage you generally don't have hot water. So it limits the ability to be able to take a shower. And as far as long-term, a homeowner can choose to have an external hookup or have it piped, or electrically piped, if you will, so that a generator can activate it. But it's not unlike a refrigerator, whereby it operates periodically. It doesn't have to be continuous. So once a day, literally, you could hook a generator up to it and empty it out and then use it for another whole day. As for the other part of the system, with respect to up near the Falmouth Mall, the municipal lift stations will have auxiliary power. So those systems will be handling the wastewater even during a power outage.
Next question? Yes, sir. It's okay, go ahead.
Richard Paglia, Massasoit Street. A couple of questions. One is, you mentioned the typical cost for Old Silver, was it? that they did not have grinder pumps.
I think that's correct.
The
Yes.
What
majority of
is-
it did not have it.
There were a few.
Two streets that have it.
What is the added cost, estimated cost for the addition of grinder pumps and the installation of them, since you need an electrician? In all probability, is going to be more complex. And the other question I have is, since there are some inherent problems such as power outage, maintenance, motors burning out due to brownouts or running dry, is there, we're talking about taxes and the assessment, is there a reduction, a potential reduction for having a grinder pump on your property? I'm talking about the assessment of the home.
No, there's no reduction. There wouldn't be an acceptable reason for reduction because the system has given you a benefit.
Well, but there are risks, as opposed to the gravity system, which don't have some of the mechanical, electrical issues, such as the need for either a backup battery, etc. The other thing I would hope is that when the specifications for bidding get drawn up, there are some systems that are large enough that I don't believe are going to be very much more, where the tank is a little larger, up to 237 gallons, that uses the same pump, the same tubing to go down. Everything else is the same except the bottom section. I can't imagine it's going to be too much more. That gives you over 200 gallons of use if there is a power failure. There are other things that are options that, and in some cases are required, like the ballast. Most of the time when they quote these units, they don't include something that the manufacturer says is required. It costs $335 for the ballast on the bottom of the pump to keep it from floating because of the buoyancy. There's also a battery backup for the alert system that would shut down the system if there is a power failure, and it protects the unit. I wish and I hope that these systems, they don't cost too much more. Even things like we talked about the unit possibly freezing if you don't use it during the winter, especially for the seasonal people. They're prone to freezing. Jerry doesn't want the use, and rightfully so, antifreeze, RV antifreeze. They have a disc, an insulating disc, $38, that would go on the unit, and it resolves that problem. When it comes to the specifications, I think it behooves us to have all those added features in the cost that hopefully the town would pick up. I know the town is supposed to pick up the cost of the grinder pumps. I don't know what the actual value they have assigned to that.
You're correct that the presumption now, we have a contingency built into the values to be able to reimburse for the value of the pump. However, and that'll be up to a set amount. However, you raise an excellent question. You're describing what you would prefer to have, just as many people would prefer to have something different on their particular property. Yes, many plumbers will have their own brands, their own equipment that they prefer to use, that they have a confidence level in, as opposed to the town telling you that this is the one that we're getting for you, this is what you will have. So the way the system is being designed now is such that the municipal system will be capable of handling 3 or 4 of the major manufacturers of those systems. You should be working with your plumber to make a determination as to what you think is best for you.
So the town's approach is that they're going to allot a certain amount of money for the grinder pumps to each home?
Correct.
and it's up to the homeowner to decide as to what features and options he wants to include.
Correct.
Okay. Last question. Because of the complexities of the grinder pump, and by the way, everybody I've spoken to is in favor of sewering. That's not a question. I am, and all my neighbors are. Initially, I'm sure you must have looked at the difference between all gravity and a mix of gravity and grinder. Do we have that number? Do we know how much more that the all gravity would be?
When we went into the project, we had looked at, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. When we went into the project, we had known that based on the topography and the potential for viable sites, that we were likely going to have a combined system. Knowing that we were going to be forced to be very deep in certain areas in order to minimize lift stations or have more lift stations and be dealing with dewatering and groundwater and extensive depths. We have looked at a total, and I don't have it on top of my head, a total present worth cost, like when we did all the other evaluations of all the different technologies, where we looked at, I think, six or seven different approaches when we did that. We have a ballpark of what the all gravity is, but because of the viability of being over 20 feet deep in some excavations or dewatering considerations, and the fact that because, as Virginia pointed out, there aren't a whole lot of vacant sites throughout the area, that really kept us from spending a whole lot of time on a gravity approach. So that's when we went to the hybrid or the combined system.
Well, certainly if you're talking 20 feet deep, I guess I would agree.
I just want to underscore that. We looked at the properties that were vacant very early on, and we couldn't find places for lift stations for it. So if you had it all gravity, there was no place for it to flow to. And then you had way down low, you get into the velocity zone for storms. We sure didn't want to build a pump station in the velocity zone. So it became obvious very early that this was going to be a combination system.
One last question. If
Just one moment. Eric, did you want to make?
You go ahead,
Okay,
and I'll follow
go ahead,
up.
sir.
If I'm on a street that has low pressure and my house is high enough, where gravity under normal circumstances would work, I guess I'm assuming that because the pipes are pressurized in the street, I may get backflow.
Yeah,
And-
you'd want to be on the low pressure system, and it's unfortunate that, yeah, if you're above the grade line, that you would have a pump system to pump into that for that very reason, which would have check valves and things so that flow isn't coming back to your house. That's
Do they have such things as motorized check valves that sense the back pressure?
They aren't motorized. So because they're so small, they have it's basically, yeah, it's a spring-loaded or a flap that, so as the pressure's coming back, it'll close that pipe off.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I gather there is some trepidation about the low-pressure systems because they are unfamiliar to most people in Falmouth. The committee last summer spent a lot of time visiting other towns where the kind of combination that's proposed here had been installed. The town of Tisbury has a combination gravity low pressure. The town of Oak Bluffs has the same thing. Hyannis has it. Marion has it. We went to all these places and talked to the operators of the systems, looked at what low-pressure systems look like in your yard. It looks like the top of a garbage can. I mean, that's the, below ground. There's nothing to see. We went and talked to the people who maintain these things, and they were like the Maytag repairman. They said, we get a call once a month, and it's usually somebody whose G.I. Joe has gone down the toilet, or somebody's stocking has gone in there. Stupid things that go down, which right now, if it went down in your house, you'd be calling the plumber for that too. So the experience of the towns that we visited was that these things were not an issue. In fact, there are, we discovered after we came back, there's a couple of them in Woods Hole where it has not been an issue. Locations where they just were so far down they had to have this kind of system. So the experience we found everywhere we went was that they weren't an issue.
Next question.
Jerry Green in Amherst Ave in the Heights. I'm seasonal, and I have one question for the engineer and then one for someone else on the panel to answer. The grinder system, is there something special that we need to do when we close the house up? And I understand from Eric that it's kind of like a garbage can, but I don't really have a good image of what the whole thing is. You talked about a wet well container. I don't know anything about that.
Understood.
So if you could elaborate on that for us that are seasonal. And then for someone else on the panel, you indicated you're going to send out letters by certified mail as to what our cost is. I don't believe the Postal Service forwards certified mail. So maybe, or do they?
I
don't
believe it
they do.
goes to the address of your tax bill.
Correct.
Right?
So that's Falmouth,
If
but I
you're-
won't be in Falmouth in the winter.
If
So
you-
my mail gets forwarded to somewhere else.
I don't believe the post office will forward it, so it
Right.
may be something that you may think of at this point in time, as we're getting closer to the notification, that you do a change of address with the assessor, so all your mail goes to your primary domicile. And you can do that until you get your certified mail, and then revert it right
And then
back
go
to what
back?
you, yeah,
Okay,
that's fine.
all right.
So to answer the first question, as the process moves forward and we identify the various different the manufacturers that the town's going to be designing around, we're going to have workshops for the residents, especially those that have low-pressure systems, but really for anyone that has questions. And so the goal would be to talk to the various different manufacturers, because each one may have something different. In my experience, what some have said is that you'll be flushing a certain amount of water down into your system, essentially of clean water, just to clean out that system. It kind of primes it. You have the system pumped down, so essentially it's empty. It's kind of like winterizing, and then you'd leave it at that, and then your system would be kind of closed up for the season.
The other thing I wanted to add, because it brought up a couple of other times, these will be below the frost line, 6, 7 feet maybe, or whatever. We'll make them below the frost line. Plus the manufacturers I have talked to, they've said the same thing. These go below the frost line, much like a lot of you have year-round water meters that are below the frost line. So, winterization, each manufacturer will have recommendation, and we hope to have an informational meeting so we can talk to the right manufacturers can talk to you rather than this guy or that guy or your local plumber.
Sorry, and just to answer the other part of your question about the systems themselves. So, coming out of your house, you will go into essentially let's call, for lack of a better term, a round receptacle. So it's basically a unit that will raise up to grade so that people can gain access to it. But the portion that contains your wastewater will be down below, because flow has to flow by gravity from your house into basically a circular container. And that'll fill up with wastewater, and that's where your pump is, and then your pump will pump the wastewater out. So that's the general concept of it.
It's all below.
It's all below ground.
I just want to clarify One, you just said that you would send out information with respect to the types of systems and so forth and who the manufacturers are. Is it our responsibility to contact all these manufacturers and figure this out? And hopefully, if you send it out, you'll send it out in the summer when 66% of the people that are affected at least will get this information instead of being in the dark about it all winters. And then the other thing is, I'm not exactly sure on the hookup. We get the plumber, we pay, you're saying our cost is between $2,500 and $4,000, that we have to pay to the plumber, whoever we select to put this in. But that doesn't include the landscaping when you dig up my whole property to put these pipes in and all of that, correct?
Yeah, generally, whenever your property is excavated, they're going to try to follow the path. A good contractor will try to follow the path of least resistance, which means that they're not going to dig up your flower garden, nor are they going to dig up your driveway specifically if it's paved. So they're going to look for those soft spots that are minimally intrusive and more easily repaired. But that will be up to the homeowner to have that discussion with the contractor who's going to be doing it. With regard to manufacturers and types, your best bet at any time, and I would suggest even now, is to start discussions with your plumber, because that is the individual that you would have the relationship with, that will become intimately familiar with what your personal property is and what the issues are going to be, and give you the best advice. I do know that there's probably a number of plumbers in this geographic area that may not be familiar with pumping systems and even may not be familiar with a lot of gravity systems because there aren't that many municipal sewer systems around. So there may be, somewhat of a curve, for them, but they're really very good at it. And I think it's really your best resource and in your best interest to start that conversation as soon as you can.
Just following up on that, wasn't the plan that the town would buy the grinder pumps at a discount? They'd buy, however many we need? Are you saying that we have to research and pick out a type of grinder pump that we need?
Well, I don't think if I was the homeowner myself that I would do that. I would actually work with someone else on that, like your plumber. I really would.
So the town's not going to provide these grinder pumps?
No, the way it's being designed right now, our system, the municipal system, will be designed such that it can handle multiple types of pumps, but not necessarily every manufacturer out there. We will let everyone know what systems it's capable of handling, and then all of the plumbers will be aware of that and be able to help you to make a decision based on all of the above. The town then would be providing a reimbursement. To a certain degree, there'll be a defined reimbursement process, yes.
Oh. Okay, thanks.
Could you discuss the vacant parcel lot, who you should talk to about, and what we need to do to prove it?
What's your question? Could you just repeat that?
Could you discuss the vacant parcel, piece of
The
land?
vacant parcel, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you the first time.
And who should...
Currently, if you have a vacant parcel that we have assessed it as a buildable parcel, the assessors are required to assess all parcels as being buildable until it's determined to be unbuildable. You would contact an attorney or a zoning consultant at this point in time and discuss it with them and have them go and do the research for you to confirm that if in fact it's unbuildable, they would present that to us and it would be approved by town council.
If I did it back in the 80s, would that be acceptable?
If you did the letter of buildability in the 80s?
That, if it was a buildable lot, which it isn't.
As long as there was no expiration date on that, and that would be something that we would check with the building commissioner on if he issued it in the 80s.
And who should I show that to?
I would come in and see me, and we'll take a look at it, and then we can go downstairs to the building commissioner.
Okay.
All right, I'll give you my card before we leave tonight.
Thank you.
I might add one thing to that. Do you know why it was determined to be unbuildable?
It was determined to be unbuildable at the time or buildable? Unbuildable. Then if it was determined to be unbuildable, it's under 5,000 square feet, then in Massachusetts, that is an unbuildable lot. So if he issued that in the 80s, it is an unbuildable lot. Do you have a primary lot that abuts it? Then my suggestion is that you talk to an engineer and you combine those lots, and you already combined them?
Yes, I'm taxed as one lot.
Then you're all set. That's one betterment.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Okay, next question. Go ahead, sir.
Ed Jalowick, Alma Road. I want to first thank Mr. Susso and the town officials that are here tonight for putting this presentation and opportunity for questions to the property owners. So thank you very much. Specific question, a lot of senior citizens have sort of asked me, you know, what is going on with the costs? And that's a big concern for many people. Specifically, they're looking at this full deferral of Betterment. And one of the handouts said, contact Trish Favuli. So contact is, when and who would determine the interest rate on that? Do the selectmen have some discretion, or is it 8% as the state law says?
The state law at 8% is for deferral of real estate taxes. The benefit deferral for this project would be determined by the Board of Selectmen when they vote the interest rate on the betterment. If it's 0 or 2%, whatever they vote, that will follow through with the deferral. So in fact, if it's 0%, then the deferral is going to be also 0%.
And that determination would be made by the Board of Selectmen after they get the final approval from the state for the interest rate from the revolving fund, which will be at some point after we make our October submission. And then the Betterment hearing would be held somewhere after they get that interest determination from the state. Is that correct? Yep. Okay, thank you.
That's correct. We need to,
Yeah, I'm a little confused about this grinder. How big is it? Where is it located? And how noisy is it when it activates? Does it wake everybody up? Or does it activate when you flush? Does it activate when it feels like it, or what?
What do they call that adjustable bed? I don't know what it is. Generally speaking, it's about, I would say, 3 foot in diameter. You can have it in your house if you want, believe it or not. There are some that do, that have full basements, would prefer to have it installed inside the home. But generally speaking, they're installed outside the home, and they are buried, usually someplace that's proximate to the house. So if the pump comes on, even if you were able to hear it from the outside, it would maybe sound like a refrigerator coming on. And quite frankly, you would become just as immune to it as you do to that refrigerator.
Now, being mechanical, not me, the pump.
can you use the microphone, sir?
Does that pump need maintenance, like oiled every year or something, or what?
No, they're generally intended to be homeowner friendly. I won't even just say user friendly as much as it is homeowner friendly. Your cars today are not like the cars in the 1950s. In the 1950s, you had to stop at if you were taking 95 to Florida, you had to stop and let your engine cool down and open the hood. But by today's standards, those cars are designed that you really don't have to do virtually anything to it, and it's still going to give you a good 100,000 miles, even if you don't change the oil. So these are intended to be very user friendly. So that they require virtually no maintenance unless something were to happen to it. Just like with a grinder that you would have in your sink, if you stick a spoon down there, you're going to have a problem.
I know after this discussion and all this talk about these grinders, I will never go into a sub shop and order a grinder. That's for damn sure.
Fair enough. Next question.
That was cute. Carol Zeman, Amherst Ave in the Heights. I was wondering if any thought was given, especially feeling the pain of a few of the voices in the audience, of prorating the McMansions that have been going up, at least in our area. It's been a struggle for us for almost 50 years, you know, very limited bathrooms. And I noticed that some of them have 5 and 10. And, you know, feeling the pain of at least 2 of the 3 of the speakers, and maybe the seniors too, that somebody has addressed, Was there any thought, instead of them paying the 17,000, maybe they pay a little more? And then the other people who have small houses with itsy-bitsy bathrooms, or maybe one, pay a little less. I appreciate, you know, the earlier speech given by somebody at the table that maybe this is an opportunity for another bathroom or a couple more bedrooms, but everybody's eyes see those McMansions. So anyway, I was just wondering about that. Because, you know, maybe if they paid 25 and some of the struggling people paid a little less, since it does seem to be going up to about 20,000, 25,000 if you're really lucky, in terms of an investment. Thank you.
We're bound by the law.
All right. I'm not quite sure I understand exactly what the full question was, but I will say this. Earlier on one of the slides, you would notice that there was a definition of a residential property, that there were 1,279 residential properties and 201 other that really constitute commercial. The equitable way to handle those types of things, some of them will have a larger use than a typical residential home. Duplexes will have a larger use than a typical residential home. So in the end, there will be some that will pay a fairly high cost, multiple betterments, because they're going to have an increased use of the system. So for all intents and purposes, that has all the effects of subsidizing the overall effect of the project. In addition to that, in the end, when it comes to the actual user charges on wastewater, just like the water that you use in your home, the more you use, the higher your bill is going to be. And that's probably another thing I would mention to everybody too, when you have this discussion with your plumber, have them look at your home for conservation devices in order to make it more efficient, water efficient, because if it's water efficient, your water bill goes down, and if it's water efficient, your wastewater bill will go down with it.
Yes, hi. My name is Mike McGurty, and I am on Cypress Street. I have a couple questions. I know it's been kicked around a few times. I don't think I've quite got the answer to it. The homeowners will be picking up the cost for the low-pressure pipe grinder system, correct? There's some rebate someone mentioned, a gentleman I believe you stated earlier, right?
Right, that larger cost there would be the actual cost of the pump itself, and the town would be providing a refund or rebate for that.
At what time will they determine the cost of that rebate?
We're still working on all the final design costs now. We can't actually put a definitive figure on anything that we've done to date, and then quite frankly, the true reality is when this thing hits the street and goes to bid. That's when we're really going to, we can guess all we want as to what the cost of the project's going to be, but we won't know until a contractor takes the contract and gives us that price back. And then in the end, as I think Virginia alluded to earlier, over the course of a couple of years of a contract, the cost could even go higher. But what that does mean for the homeowner is the number that you are given as of the date of the Betterment hearing, even if the town's costs go up on that contract, it cannot be passed on to you. That is your maximum cost that you would have to pay.
And that'll include the pump system?
No, the cost that we're talking about and the cost that was presented this evening is the Betterment cost.
Correct, that's what I'm trying to get to. We're talking about a rebate on the pump system into a lot of these homes on Mara Vista. And we don't know what the cost, the reimbursement that we may be able to get for that pump, in addition to the Betterment. So getting the pump is something we have to pay for and hope we get a reimbursement, basically, because there's no number out there for that.
But you won't, we're fairly far away from that, okay? Sure. You're not going to go out and buy your pump today until we actually have a signed contract in hand that we're going to build a system to receive it.
I appreciate that, but there's an awful lot of homes on Mara Vista that are going to be putting pumps in, and I think that's a concern these people should have. I own property in the MWRA area. I know what storage is. These pumps, by the way, sir, up front, are extremely well built. They work very well. You don't hear a sound. They can be in the house, outside, wherever they are, so that's not an issue. And this lady back here about the women, people with 5 or 6 bathrooms, they're going to pay on the other end when they start flushing all those toilets, so don't worry about them. They'll get them up on the other end of the deal. But That's the question I have, and I don't think we got an answer for that. I think there's a lot of people in here that are going to be getting these low-pressure pump systems that I think this is one of the answers they're looking for. I just think that we're talking about, it's not part of the betterment. So the betterment will bring the piping down the street to your house, and you'll get it right to your front lawn. Then we, who have a low-pressure system, will have to pay for this pumping system. Is that correct?
Right, you would.
Okay. Now, where's the reimbursement that we talked about earlier? There'll be some monies there, or they haven't decided yet, or I don't know what that is.
We put a contingency into the contract values that have already been approved, and that's in the about, I would say, $4,500 range. So that would cover the cost of the pump.
Okay, so it's possibly there'll be the $4,500 in there for each property?
Correct.
Okay. There's the question. We all heard that, right? $4,500. We're going to hold them to it. Okay, remember that number.
Just remember he said
Thank you.
approximately.
Martha Gavanis from Mira Vista Ave. Another question
Go ahead.
another question that was not answered was what the additional costs would be for the people with the low pressure system on the hookup. It was asked and was not answered. You were talking about $2,500 to $4,000 for hookup, but not for the low pressure system. So what is the additional cost that you know of for the hookup for the low pressure?
It too, just like the other one, that was just an average cost that was used for the gravity side, and you're probably looking at something just slightly higher on the low-pressure pump system side, but it all depends on the property. If they run down your driveway and you have a paved driveway, your cost is definitely going to be higher than somebody's who's going through the dirt. It's going to be different for each property. It really will. Yours is going to be different from your neighbor's, and the one next to that neighbor is going to be different from theirs. They're all going to differ. It's going to differ depending on what plumber you have, what contractors are used, what your site conditions are. Generally speaking, on the low pressure side, the pipe doesn't have to go as deep as it does on the gravity side, so the excavation effort would be slightly less. The pipe itself is actually smaller. Believe it or not, there are companies out there that are capable of shooting that pipe across your lawn without even digging it up. So there are options out there, but it's going to be different for every single property. We cannot predetermine what that's going to be. So that's why what you were given this evening was what an average cost would be, and that, granted, that was for a gravity connection, but it's not that much more for the low pressure pump.
So the digging that hole to put the pump in, connecting, putting the pump in, putting the tank in, would just be possibly a little higher than the $2,500 to $4,000?
That's about right, yes. Yes. It depends, but it depends on your site. It depends on a number of different issues.
Now, this may be a silly question, and we may not be able to answer it right now, but one thing that I have been wondering about is how long can we not use the house system during the hookup process? I don't think it's like calling in a plumber for a problem where he comes and a couple hours later it's fixed. This sounds to me like you might not have use of your system for a day or two while you dig up and run and detach from one kind of system and reattach to another system. Anybody have any idea what that is?
They would essentially be doing that work during the day. I mean, so presumably once all the system is installed in the road and ready to receive you, that when you contract with your contractor to come out and either make the gravity connection or the low pressure connection, they will come out and they will install that. They will make that connection first, and then they will abandon your septic system after that. That's my understanding is the problem. Sorry.
The experience in New Silver Beach where there was maybe around 200 connections, one day or less. You know, sometimes they hit, and they'll tell you don't run water for, one was 4 hours, the other, it was closer to the whole day. I'm not sure, but that's between you and your installer, so, but assume one day.
One more question. I'm sorry, I might have missed this, but what's your best guess about when this will arrive at our front doors?
It depends on,
Yeah,
it will depend on where you live and in terms of where the contractor's going to be working. So part of that's going to be a function of the construction schedule, which is estimated at about a 2-year period. And then as part of that, there will be workshops and information going out so that you have an idea of when your neighborhood has been planned for. Right now, what we're considering is the work in the Falmouth Heights area, because that can connect right to the existing collection system. And then it'll depend on how, what the contractor comes back for a schedule with regards to how many crews and where they are, and then traffic control. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play, and the intent is to keep the public informed, and then the contractor has certain requirements too to let you know, hey, we're going to be working on your street in advance of them actually showing up at your front yard. So, and it will be in steps. So people should understand that when they go and they install the main, like they're doing, say, for the gas service, you see the guys, they go down, they install the main down the main road. Then what'll happen is they'll have another crew typically that will come back to install the laterals. So there may be a gap between when they've worked to install the main in front of your house and when they've come back to install the lateral. And prior to all that is when we deal with the notices to make sure that, what?
We'll let you know. We will be able to actually predict approximately within a month or so, or 2 or 3 months, something like that, when a geographic area is going to be ready for a connection, and we'll be able to communicate that with you. The contractors, as well as the town, will be working closely with the residents on all of the street in order to make sure we have a well-coordinated effort, and we don't want to make sure that we keep the disruptions to a minimum.
It's nearly 9 o'clock. In the interest of time, maybe just 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay.
But we'll have a breakout afterwards, so go ahead, sir.
Relative to the question about the cost of the installation of the grinder pumps, since they take 2 30-amp circuits, one of the more significant costs, I believe, is going to be electrical. And especially for people who don't have adequate panels, electrical panels. And last note, I thought it was a good idea that the town would be putting out bids for a single pump manufacturer, where you specify, you are the experts, specify the items in the bid that should be there to protect us, and get the best price. And there may be some variations, whether you want an indoor pump setup, which was the original, or an outdoor pump, and maybe the different sizes. But at least you would be, as experts, would be picking what you feel is the most appropriate, most long-lasting, most maintenance-free, because there are some that are out there that are two horsepower pumps versus 1. The 1 horsepower seems to be adequate based on a lot of stuff I've looked at, and yet the 2 horsepower is going to cost quite a bit more to operate on a regular basis. So you, as experts, I thought it was a good idea that you were going to be putting it out for bid, but it sounds like you're backing away from that.
What you're actually talking about in legal terminology is a proprietary bid. A similar event would be if we say, this is the only contractor that you're going to be allowed to install anything. The first thing that's going to happen in a competitive world in which government operates, when we go out to bid, that's what we're doing. We're seeking competition. We're not going out to a contractor and saying, this is going to be your multi-million-dollar contract. When we include something in that bid package that is one vendor only, then it's being named as a proprietary item. So you have to be able to justify it in front of the Attorney General. They render a decision on those types of things because other manufacturers will want to say that they should be eligible to be able to do it as well. But once you get into one specification like that, it's known as a proprietary spec.
Okay, I understand that. How have other towns handled it?
I'm sorry?
How have other towns handled it? Have they done the same thing where they haven't gone with a single manufacturer, or they've left it up to the residents?
I'm sure there's probably a whole range of options out there as to what towns have or have not done. But I do know with us that all the eyes of the world are going to be on this project, especially in lieu of recent issues, if you will, when it comes to municipal projects. And so because of that, the town is going to be very, very careful on how we proceed on all aspects of this to ensure that, number one, we get the best value, and number two, we get a very efficient contractor who is very competent in order to protect everybody's interest, and of course, thirdly, one that's going to be legally correct and defensible.
The least I would hope that the town would do would be to somehow negotiate with the different manufacturers some kind of a discount that the residents may be able to take advantage of if they go to that particular vendor.
And those may be options. Those may be options.
One last question for someone who hasn't asked it yet, who hasn't had a chance. Anybody who has a question who has not spoken yet? Okay, go ahead. You get the last one, sir.
All right, thank you very much. On Roundel Street, behind the bowling alley, once this goes through, does this mean they're going to let that be all built up behind the bowling alley by the mall? They're not going to let it? I just want to know this history lesson, because this has been going on since the 90s too, along with our school system.
Well, I think the best answer to that is a decision on that project is unrelated to this wastewater project.
Yeah, we'll see when time comes.
So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Certainly. I would just ask, sir, is it a quick one?
Yeah, quick one.
Okay.
Steve Gross, 24 Massasoit. You know, it'd be really good. There's a lot of knowledge and details. There ain't nothing tying it together. If there's different scenarios, if you could produce, you know, what the price components would be, I think it'd be a spreadsheet or matrix. Say this is your condition, and these are the types of things, you know, you would possibly install. Here's what they cost, because there's permutations that just make this thing dizzy. But because you're talking about numbers, you know, but they're not coherent and laid out for different cases. That's what I think everybody wants to know is, how is this going to affect me? And I can say, well, I'm somewhere in that sea of 20 people, and it would probably look like this. It's not my situation. It's a combined view of somebody's. But if we had one laid out like that, I think that'd be really helpful. I think it would lower your calls. It might increase them, but I think it would, if it was done right, is say, okay, now I understand. The town's going to pay this. I'm going to pay that.
Okay.
And these are things I need to have put in myself.
Good suggestion. Let us take a run at it, and we'll put it on our website when we have that available. I would just say at this point, I want to thank everyone for coming. We're not going to leave yet. If you have questions, some questions about your individual property, want to point to one of the maps at the breakout locations, we'll stick around and answer your individual follow-up questions. And of course, we're not going anywhere, so we continue to be available to you as you have questions going forward. Thank you and good evening.